Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started right away. We know we have some bells that are going to be going off fairly soon. So, without any preamble, pursuant to Standing Order 10, I'm used to the other one. Pursuant to Standing Order 81 for main estimates 2018-2019. Vote 1 under Canada Mortgage and Housing Corp. Vote 1 under Canada Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, and votes 1 and 5 under Department of Employment and Social Development referred to the committee on Monday, April the 16th. We're very pleased to have with us today appearing the Honourable Jean-Yves Duclos, Minister of Family, Children's and Social Development, the Honourable Kirsty Duncan, Minister of Science and Minister of Sport and Persons with Disability, and the Honourable Patty Hajdu, the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour. Thank you very much. I don't know if you've rock, paper, scissors to determine who's going to go first, or...
Point of order, please.
Yes.
Yes. Alors, Monsieur le Président, bonjour.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon. As you know, if we're delayed today...
Translation, I'm afraid.
Can you hear me? Testing English. 1, 2, 3. English, testing. English channel, testing 1, 2, 3. English channel.
Is anybody's machine working in front of them?
Yes.
Okay. Is anybody's machine working? Test.
English testing 1, 2, 3. Mr. Chair, can you hear me? You can understand me? Testing English channel 1, 2, 3. Testing. All right. Mr. Chair, we've begun late today because the government is muzzling the opposition in the House of Commons. And I have to say that I really appreciate the fact that the 3 ministers have presented their speeches in writing because, as you know, we have votes in about an hour, so that's why I ask that we go straight to questions and then we can read the speeches later on after the committee meeting itself.
I think I'd like to stick with the normal way of things, if that's okay.
I would, if I could speak to the point of order. Thank you, Chair.
It's actually not. I'm going to have to interrupt here because this is actually not a point of order, and we do have limited time. So I would like to turn the floor now over to
point of order.
Mr. Warwa.
So, Chair, anything that has to do with standing orders and procedure and the schedule, that is a point of order. So, Chair, I would move that we begin with.
You can't move a motion at this point, sir. I'm sorry. Madame Sanssouci.
Je comprends donc.
I understand then, Mr. Chair, that we won't be voting on the proposal before us because I agreed. I had questions ready. I think we have an opportunity here with the ministers before us to be able to gain deeper insights, and I think it would be a good idea for us to go straight to questions before concluding. So you're saying, Mr. Chair, that you're going to go straight to the speeches by the ministers?
Same standard that we would normally.
Je vais finir.
I'll conclude then. I'd like to conclude.
So there will be time for questions.
Bon, dans ce cas-là, je vais continuer de.
In that case, I'll continue to take advantage of this time to tell you that I would then decide to table a motion now, a motion that I tabled last week for the benefit.
No.
Pour le bénéfice des ministres qui sont présents.
For the benefit of the ministers who are here. The motion said that the committee would undertake a study of at least 6 meetings on the employment insurance sickness benefits to look at, not exclusively, if the program is meeting the real needs of claimants, the impact of the length of benefits on claimants, as well as on their recovery, access to the program, those who are affected by this program, their characteristics, without being limited to this list of witnesses, groups who represent people from the Department of Social Development, and that there be a report to the House. The interpreter didn't have a copy of the motion. I think we have an opportunity to talk about this motion with the ministers here, Mr. Chair, so I would like to continue debate on it. I think it's an important motion. I think we need to do this study. We need to vote on it so we can go forward with this study. The minister has said publicly that it's an important topic, and the minister even committed to doing it in the coming year when he granted an interview to Radio Canada. I think the year has gone by, so it's very important, I think, that we have a debate on this motion and that we decide to go forward with this study.
Here I have Mark, and then Mona, and then Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the motion. We do have the minister here. I think it's very appropriate that we deal with this now. I'm disappointed that we didn't go straight to questions, but this is a way of dealing with it, a very important issue that my colleague has raised. I think the motion is appropriate, and if we deal with it now, then we'll have an opportunity as a committee to give direction to the minister that this is what we'll be doing. I'm also concerned that this issue is not a new issue. This is an issue that has been brought by my colleague before and other members of the Parliament, and the government has promised in the past that they would deal with this, and they haven't. And that's why we have this before us today. Now, we are here today entertaining a motion like this because the government has moved a motion to stop debate in the House and also to cause a vote where we have to be going back and forth. There's a vote to return to orders of the day, which took away half hour of this meeting. And that first half hour would have been an opportunity when the ministers would have spoken during that half hour. The government moved that, and members of this committee, of the government members, actually supported that in the House. So we started this meeting a half hour late. So for us to deal with this motion now, I think is a necessity. And
Chair, what's the relevancy here?
You're getting to the end here. Thank you.
the relevance is that this should have been dealt with by the government. And my concern, if I don't speak to this, that the next action, this is what the government has done before, to members of this, the Liberal members, that they move that the debate now be adjourned. Now, if that is what the government moves, they have stopped debate in the House. They've restricted us to time to ask the ministers, 3 ministers here, to ask questions. And my hope is that I'm expecting, what I'm expecting isn't going to happen. That the government members will actually permit debate in this, will respect members of the opposition, and we have her official opposition members, Conservative members, and an NDP member, and respect the members of this to ask questions and not take away our time through procedural. This meeting is televised, Chair, and so the public can see what's happening. Whether or not the government is going to be fair and listen, or whether the government is going to abuse the rights. And our rights are the rights, Chair, to represent our community and what we're hearing from our constituents. And Canadians are not happy with what's happening. So I encourage members, and I'm going to be giving up my time now, so that a Liberal member will have a chance to speak to us. And I surely hope that I'm wrong. I hope that they will not move a motion to end debate as they have in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Warwa. I would remind all of us that we are televised, and we are actually here to hear from the ministers and not necessarily to deal with a particular piece of motion that we agree there is merit, but there is a time and a place. And Mona Fortier, please.
I will quickly move the motion to adjourn the debate. Thank you.
All those in favor of adjourning? Yes.
Madame Fortier?
Oui.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Rumi?
Yes.
Mr. Sangha?
Yes.
Monsieur Blaney?
Non.
Ms. Falk? No. Mr. Warawa?
No.
Madame Sansusi?
Non.
With that, the motion is adjourned. For the debate, I should say, is adjourned. Monsieur Duclos, the next few minutes are yours, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers membres,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you for inviting me, Minister Aidu, and Minister Duncan to join you today. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. It is always a pleasure to be with you, Mr. Chair, and the members of this committee. I would like to thank the department's employees who work very hard every day and without whom none of this would be possible. I want to point out that I recognize and appreciate the work that you do, committee members, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you about my responsibilities regarding the Employment and Social Development Canada main estimates as Minister of Children, Families, and Social Development. Our government continues to actively improve the social and economic well-being of Canadians in the middle class and those working hard to join it. My department's budget shows the variety of programs we have to achieve this and to ensure that Canadians profit from and take part in our economic growth.
part of my mandate is to ensure that fewer Canadians live in poverty. For me, this is much more than a goal. It's a personal quest. Finding opportunities to reduce poverty is the reason why I became an economist many years ago and a politician just a few years ago. Over the past year, we have been very active in developing the first ever Canadian poverty reduction strategy. Let me take this opportunity to thank the UMA Committee for your valuable report entitled Breaking the Cycle, a study on poverty reduction, tabled in the House last year. This important report has already played a key role in helping our government determine the way forward on poverty reduction. It was considered an essential part of our extensive consultations that we did on the subject, which started with the consultation paper I released when you received me and invited me to start your important work last year. So again, thank you very much. I believe you're also familiar with the Tackling Poverty Together project, which aimed to provide valuable insight to support our poverty reduction strategy. This project supports evidence-based decision-making as it provides performance measurement, data, and important feedback from people with lived experiences of poverty. Following extensive consultations with Canadians, we held a national poverty conference and workshop, and we released a What We Heard About Poverty So Far report. This work is instrumental in shaping an informed, effective strategy to reduce poverty in this country. Canada's first national poverty reduction strategy will take a long-term view in setting targets. It will make sure that the proper tools are in place to measure and to report on progress. It will also build on initiatives we've already taken to reduce poverty and increase opportunity. For example, the work we are doing to help those most in need, like low-income workers. La mise en place de la nouvelle allocation.
Implementing the new Canada Workers Benefit announced in 2018 will put more money in the pockets of low-income workers to support them as they work hard to join the middle class. We estimate that this measure alone will help 70,000 Canadians get out of poverty by 2020 and will encourage more Canadians to join the workforce and to remain in the workforce. For low-income workers and their families, this represents more opportunity and real change in their lives. To help Canadian families, we are also improving the Canada Child Benefit, which has already had a considerable impact on people's lives, to ensure that it keeps up with the rising cost of living starting in July, 2 years earlier than planned. Support programs like the Canada Child Benefit are important. That's why we are taking measures to ensure that those who need them can access them. In light of this, we will increase our awareness efforts in Indigenous communities which face unique obstacles to accessing financial support. This is important because the average amount families receive through the Canada Child Benefit is $6,800 per year. These non-taxable benefits go directly into the pockets of Canadians who can use this money to buy healthy food or buy clothes, books, and school supplies for their children. We must also ensure that this support benefits all families who need it. Along with this benefit, we are taking steps to help young families who often do not have access to child care service because it is too expensive or there are no available places. We are investing $7.5 billion over 11 years in early learning and child care. And we have reached 3-year bilateral funding agreements with the provinces and territories.
Partners to co-develop an Indigenous early learning and childcare framework which will reflect the unique cultures and needs of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities across our great country. Supporting families is certainly a priority for all of us, and one of the most meaningful actions we can make in their lives is to help them have a roof over their heads and a place to call home. Last November, we released Canada's first ever national housing strategy. This 10-year, $40 billion plan covers the entire housing continuum, from shelters and affordable housing to market rentals and home ownership. It is an ambitious plan that will lift 500,000 households out of housing need and will result in up to 100,000 new housing units and 300,000 repaired or renewed housing units. Complementing our work on housing, last June, we also established the Advisory Committee on Homelessness, chaired by Parliamentary Secretary Adam Vaughan, to provide advice on the redesign of our homelessness partnering strategy. We want to better prevent and reduce homelessness in this country, and that is exactly what we intend to do. We released the committee's first report, along with a What We Heard report last week, and we plan to announce an expanded and redesigned federal homelessness program in the near future. Malgré les mesures importantes,
Despite the important measures I just mentioned and that we have taken to help all Canadians who have difficulty making ends meet, we know it is always possible to do better. For example, our government implemented automatic enrollment in Guaranteed Income Supplement benefits. Once recipients are registered for old age security benefits, their file is automatically reviewed each year for the Guaranteed Income Supplement in case their income has decreased and they need this additional support to make ends meet. We know how important these benefits are. That is why one of the first things our government did was to restore the eligibility age for old age security to 65, down from 67, to keep 100,000 seniors from falling into poverty each year. We also took action to help the seniors of tomorrow by working with the provinces to improve the Canada Pension Plan so that Canadians who have worked hard all their lives can have more money when they retire.
fast, simple, and quality service from their government. They deserve to receive services and benefits in a timely fashion. And with the new realities of today, they also need more flexibility. For new mothers, greater flexibility can mean equality at home and at work. For example, our new employment insurance parental sharing benefit will support greater gender equality by adding 5 weeks of EI parental benefits when both parents agree to share parental leave, or an additional 8 weeks for those who choose the extended parental benefit option. The use it or lose it incentive encourages and promotes a more equal sharing of the responsibilities and joys of raising children. We are also proposing legislation to make the current EI Working While Unclaimed pilot project permanent. This project helps people stay connected with the labor market by encouraging them to accept work and earn additional income while receiving their EI benefits. Its rules would also now be expanded to sickness and maternity claimants who currently have their benefits reduced dollar for dollar if they earn income while on EI. This would assist sickness claimants to stagger their return to work. When it comes to benefits, choice and flexibility are very important, and so is access. And that's why we've put a focus on service delivery. We are improving services to Canadians through recent budget investments, including the doubling of EI call center accessibility from 30% to more than 60% since 2015-2016. An additional $128 million over 3 years announced in Budget 2018 will further increase EI call center accessibility to 70%. En conclusion, il est clair que nous
In conclusion, it is clear that we are working to reduce and eliminate barriers that keep Canadians from taking full part in and benefiting fully from our country's economic growth. Even though Canada's economy is strong, there are still too many Canadians who have difficulty making ends meet. Working together to reduce poverty, improving people's quality of life, and giving everyone a better chance to succeed in life are some of the goals we are pursuing through our initiatives. Moreover, we are paying particular attention to the methods we use to deliver services. Through this important work, we hope to grow the middle class and help those working hard to join it by ensuring that everyone can benefit from our fast-growing economy. I hope sincerely that we can continue this excellent partnership we have with the members of your committee and continue benefiting from your recommendations to achieve this goal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Warwa.
So, Chair, in our policy manual, the House of Commons procedure practice.
Actually, before we proceed down that track, sorry to interrupt, we do have bells. So do I have unanimous consent that we stay, or no? Yes? Yes? Unanimous consent? Okay, go ahead, sir.
So, Chair, when we invite people to, particularly parliamentarians, to come to this committee, there is no obligation for them to come. And they were invited to, so that we could answer questions. The amount of time is at your discretion, Chair. It could be in the routine motions that I have before me. It's the discretion of the chair to have 5 to 10 minutes. Now, the concern that was raised at the very beginning of this was that we wanted to have time to answer questions, to ask questions of the ministers. And that time was taken up, was to be able to move right to questions instead of having statements, which we have written speeches. The committee said no. So that would be up to your discretion then how much time. Now, the time then allotted for a half-hour meeting, and actually less than half-hour meeting, was 10 minutes that you allotted. And you have the discretion from 5 to 10, and you gave them 10, and the first witness was allowed over 11 and a half minutes. So the point that I'm making, Chair, is that because of the discretion of the chair, we have lost our opportunity in this first round to ask questions of these ministers. So we can assure you that there will be a motion to invite these ministers back, because they were not invited to speak to us. They were invited, particularly by members of the opposition, all of us, to ask them questions. And so there are more government members in this committee than there are opposition members. There's only 4 opposition members here, and our right to ask questions of these ministers has been removed. And I'm very concerned that the rules were applied in that way. And Chair, I hope that your discretion will be used to ensure that we always have that right to ask questions, particularly if it's ministers, to report here to this committee, to answer questions of how are they spending the money, Canadians' money. And we want to hold them accountable to that. And we've lost that opportunity today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that opinion. Unfortunately, you may have missed one of the things I said earlier, was that we will be coming back so that we can in fact ask questions. And what we have accomplished today is we have actually wasted 25 minutes moving motions, points of order. So you're right, we have lost a significant amount of time today, and I assure you that we will be asking to extend when we come back so that we will have sufficient time with the ministers. But if you remember, sir, I did actually say we would be coming back. The ministers were going to be coming back to answer those questions that you're concerned about. So I understand what you're doing right now. I appreciate that. This is the role of opposition at times, but please let's get back to it. If we are going to continue to stay, I would ask that Minister Haiju, the next few minutes are yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and thank you so much for the opportunity today to speak
I
to you about-
apologize once again. More games are being played, and consent has been removed for us to continue to sit. So we will come back as soon as possible, and you will be first up. Thank you. Suspend. And we will suspend. Madam Haiju, Minister, we have only 5 minutes, I'm afraid, for your remarks. And we're going to, and Ms. Duncan will have about 5 minutes as well, I'm afraid. So the next 5 minutes are yours.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Employment and Social Development Canada's portion of the 2018-19 main estimates and outline how important programs will be delivered by the department. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais aussi...
Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people.
Development and labor, I'm firmly focused on making sure that every Canadian has a fair chance to succeed. And since November 2015, Canadians have created over 600,000 jobs, most of which are full-time. And the unemployment rate is now near historic lows, and Canada is leading the G7 in G7 countries in economic growth. But we do know there's still more work to do. We need equality of opportunity in order for every Canadian to reach their full potential. And this is a lens that we apply to everything that we do as a government. Cela dit, le fait est que les femmes et les filles ont encore...
The fact is, for women and girls, there are still many barriers to overcome. Our government is intent on breaking down these barriers. Budget 2018 focused on actions to ensure that the benefits of a growing economy are shared by more and more people.
That ensure the benefits of a growing economy are shared by more people, and part of that action includes measures to promote gender equality through pay equity. On average, women earn just 69 cents for every dollar earned by men on an annual basis, even though about 3/4 of young women have post-secondary certificates or a degree. And that's not right, and it's also not very smart. And it's why we're moving forward with proactive pay equity legislation. But we also have to address this wage gap for women and for other vulnerable populations through pay transparency measures, which will provide Canadians with information on the pay practices of federally regulated employers. And these measures will help to highlight those employers who model equitable pay practices while holding employers accountable for wage gaps. We have also taken action to promote and advance women in occupations where they're currently underrepresented. Indeed, we've put forward measures to further support the participation and success of women in the trades. We announced 3 initiatives as part of Budget 2018. And these are $46 million over 5 years for a new pre-apprenticeship program, $19.9 million over 5 years to pilot an apprenticeship incentive grant for women, and $10 million over 3 years for the new Women in Construction Fund. Nous sommes convaincus que les mesures que nous prenons.
We are confident that the steps we are taking to promote gender equality will go a long way to ensuring everyone has an equal chance at success.
That women and other vulnerable workers have the same opportunities when it comes to getting a job and succeeding in that job. And so we have to ensure that every person can work in an environment free of harassment and violence. And Bill C-65 will do just that by helping to put an end to these unacceptable behaviors in federally regulated workplaces and on Parliament Hill. It will require employers to prevent incidents of harassment and violence, to respond effectively if these incidents happen and when they occur, and to support victims. And through Budget 2018, we announced $34.9 million over 5 years, starting in 2018-19, and $7.4 million per year ongoing to build awareness on harassment and violence, create education and training tools for employees and employers, and establish a toll-free helpline to help employers and employees navigate the process and put in place effective workplace policies. So I want to thank again the members of this committee who I know worked incredibly hard to propose amendments that will strengthen Bill C-65 and for working so collaboratively to get the job done. Did you raise your...
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute, okay. In addition to Bill C-65, we're also taking steps to modernize our labor standards. Innovation is changing the way that we work and live, bringing with it new realities for Canadian workers and employers. And in this rapidly changing environment, we need to continue to protect the rights and well-being of workers while ensuring that employers have the flexibility that they need to succeed. So you'll recall that in Budget 2017, we proposed to give federally regulated private sector employees the right to request flexible work arrangements from their employer, such as flexible start and finish times and the ability to work from home. Budget 2017 also made bereavement leave more flexible and introduced new leaves for family responsibilities to participate in traditional Indigenous practices and for employees who are victims of family violence or the parent of child who is the victim of family violence. And these measures will help employees in the federally regulated private sectors better balance their work, family, and other personal responsibilities. And we are continuing our work on that front. In Budget 2018, we announced that we intend to make 5 days of the new 10-day leave for family violence paid. How can we make sure all of this actually happens once these and other new measures are in place? Well, of course, we need stronger compliance and enforcement measures. And for example, amendments made to the Canada Labour Code, like the introduction of monetary penalties and administrative fees and the authority to publicly name violators, will update enforcement tools, bringing the code in line with regimes that exist in other jurisdictions. I think the chair is giving me notice that my time is done. I want very much to talk about all of the other exciting things that we're doing, but we'll have to save that for a later date.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chair.
Now, Minister Duncan, next 5 minutes are all yours. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président et membres du
Mr. Chair and members of the committee,
Algonquin territory, and thank the Algonquin people for sharing their land with us. It is a pleasure to be here today with my colleagues, Minister Duclos and Minister Hajdu, and our officials to speak about the main estimates. This is the first time I'm appearing before the committee as Minister of Sport and Persons with Disabilities, and I'm pleased to provide information and perspectives on our work and ambitions with regard to people with disabilities. Je suis honorée et profondément.
I am honored and deeply committed to supporting those with disabilities and to ensuring that they have access to the supports they need for full inclusion in our society.
14% of Canadians aged 15 years or older reported having a disability that limited them in their daily activities, and close to 2.3 million families in Canada provide day-to-day support for a family member with a disability. And that number will only continue to grow as our population ages. So not only is this important to people with disabilities in our government, it is important to all Canadians. That's why my priority as minister is to put in place new federal accessibility legislation to help break down barriers in areas of federal jurisdiction. Once in place, the legislation will increase the inclusion and participation of Canadians who have disabilities or functional limitations in their communities and workplaces. It will also promote equality of opportunity for everyone, and right now, that opportunity doesn't always exist. We intend to change that. New federal legislation would set out expectations or standards for inclusion and accessibility and would help to address systemic issues so that discrimination doesn't happen in the first place. It would also help provide a framework to break down barriers in areas where the Government of Canada has authority and can show leadership so that we all have more equal chance of success. As you may know, last year we concluded the most extensive and accessible consultation process that is informing the development of this historic legislation. We reached over 6,000 Canadians and advocates in cities across Canada. Les Canadiens nous ont fait part de
Canadians shared their stories with us, the challenges they have encountered in relation to accessibility, and their ideas and hopes for the new law. A report on what we learned from Canadians during the consultation process was released at the end of last year.
Introduce new federal accessibility legislation in Parliament soon to eliminate barriers and ensure greater accessibility and opportunities for Canadians with disabilities in areas under federal jurisdiction, including employment, transportation, access to buildings, and use of information and services. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure equality, inclusion, and full participation in Canadian society for persons with disabilities. My main focus is to make this goal a reality, to build upon the important work that has taken place, table new legislation that will ensure equality of opportunity for people with disabilities that many Canadians take for granted. While the tabling of this legislation remains my top priority, it is only one part of our government's efforts to increase the inclusion of people with disabilities. I wish I could talk about our Enabling Accessibility Fund, our Opportunities Fund, our Social Development and Partnerships Program, and the new investments we've made for the Opportunities Fund, which is a new investment of $77 million over 10 years and will allow us to have greater inclusion in communities and workplaces. In conclusion, let me say that making sure every Canadian has a fair and equal chance at success is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do, and our future prosperity depends on it. I want to thank this committee for its support and guidance in breaking down barriers for persons with disabilities. We know nothing will be rectified overnight, but we also know we can get there, and together we will make Canada a more accessible nation than it is today. Merci.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you to all ministers. Unfortunately, the clock is now reading 5:32. I wish we did have time for questions. We should have had time for questions, and I apologize for that.